Mic check, mic check. Happy Monday, everyone. Hope you're all well and doing great. I certainly am refreshed, getting some fresh mountain air, some beautiful turns in on the mountain as well. Oh, what a beautiful. Did you see? I don't know if you saw the tweet over there. I was dropping the kids off at ski school, and someone's like, "Are you Jordan?" Yeah, I recognized your voice. He's like, "I've been with CTM since like the beginning." He's like, I now trade full time. Thank you. It was beautiful. Later in the day, we met up. We got to make some turns together. I showed him my favorite trail. It was really nice to see CTM out on the mountains and that just like impromptu craziness. All right, we got a beautiful session ahead today. I'm looking forward to it. I feel great. I feel great that everyone here in CTM knows exactly what they should be doing right now. It's a good feeling, either, being on the sidelines right now for the swing traders, waiting to get back in on the long side, or those that are playing both sides, knowing exactly when you should have. It's beautiful. We're going to talk about it all. We're going to get to that section in a little bit. I'm going to start over here with the technology adoption life cycle, because you all are very familiar with it here at CTM, right? Adoption, it's how the S curve works, and the technology adoption life cycle. What I want you to focus in on, this word over here is cut off. This says chasm, all right? Right now, we are in the early adopters phase. When we say early adopters, we're talking about the number of users of the network. We're looking at approximately $200 million with that expected $1 billion sometime around 2024. What people think that they're late to Bitcoin and that they missed it, and they don't realize that what has taken place was this is when it was during the hype phase, when it was really almost really risky to be invested into Bitcoin, right? Where we've been over here for the last 4 years in the facing reality phase, it's whether or not Bitcoin is going to be able to make it as a technology that gathers adoption and move towards that ultimate market opportunity. All right, everyone, buckle in, sit in. We got a good one ahead of us. We got a great one ahead of us. I know that over the last few weeks, the amount of information, the amount of alpha has been intense, right? Look, today's session is going to be so important. So look, I'm really happy to be here with you all as we do what we do each and every day. CTM. All right, where are we going to start off? I'm going to start over here. So one word, adoption. It's how the S curves work. Bitcoin is currently in the facing reality stage known as the strategic inflection point for businesses. What are we talking about over there? We're going to come back to that in 1 second. Technology needs to prove itself before what you know as the early majority or ultimate market opportunity phase begins. That really quick is over here. Let me jump to some other photos for you, right? Early majority. We're still in the early adopters phase, and here we see this chasm again. What's going on with this chasm? What needs to happen over here in order for us to make that jump? And that jump happens to be into that ultimate market opportunity. We're not looking at some type of log regression channel. That's not what S curves do. That's not what technology that's able to be adopted does, right? Now, so you see over here, it's marked liftoff. And currently during this phase, a lot has happened. We had, going back just a couple of years ago, we had the fork wars, where everyone thought that they could fork over the code of Bitcoin and make a better Bitcoin, a faster Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cat, right? No, right? And Bitcoin Core the network itself was able to fight all of that off. Ethereum is going through a similar thing right now. Ethereum, earlier on in the adoption life cycle, is currently now facing a lot of things that Bitcoin faced in late 2017, early 2018 with the fork wars. Ethereum has a lot of competitors, and they're trying to find out whether or not it could fight them off, get a lot of its particular features under control or not, right? Bitcoin at this particular time, it had high fees. It didn't make it very usable. Right now, Ethereum has very high gas fees. And it's not just Ethereum and Bitcoin. All technology goes through this particular phase. Right now, I do believe, though, right? We've seen SegWit help get fees down. We also seen the Lightning Network. Jack Mallers over at the Bitcoin conference last week talking about how now the Lightning. Oh, by the way, did you see that the Lightning Network was adopted by Shopify? Is that correct? Shopify? I have to watch that segment again. I have to get that on conquertrades.com. There's no question about it. That's absolutely amazing that anyone in the world can instantly, whatever. Beautiful. What I think, one of the things that I helped or believe that really has helped Bitcoin come towards the end of this facing reality phase and is going to help it make that lift off into the ultimate market opportunity has been the Lightning Network. It's the reason El Salvador was able to adopt it as legal tender. And, anyway, I don't know where we're going with there. Let's keep moving forward. Jack Ballers. I saw that was one of my favorite segments from the Bitcoin conference 2022, Miami. Another one was Bitcoin is Freedom. If you haven't seen Bitcoin is Freedom, it's Why I Bitcoin. Make sure that you go to Bitcoin Magazine on YouTube. Look for Bitcoin is Freedom. Listen to that one. Jack Mallers, incredible stuff. And we're watching this adoption take place in real time. And here's the thing. You're early. You're an early adopter, and people have difficulty wrapping their head around it. Could you imagine at this particular place in time looking to what? Short Bitcoin. Now, I know it's CTM 2.0. We have the ability to trade both sides, right, on a swing trader's time frame, the 8-hour time frame. Swing trading refers to how long you hold something, not whether you trade long side or short side. We trade whatever brings the most alpha, and we have options. That's the beauty of it, but we're going to get into that in a little bit, right? Look, I built a massive position over a year when Bitcoin was trading between $5,000 and $10,000 in Bitcoin. That opportunity exists right now, right? Is it between 40 and 60,000? Are you going to call it between $30 and $70,000? Same difference. You got to back out. You got to zoom out and look what's ahead of you. By the way, right? It's not too often that price hits the outer band over here or the lower band. And when it does, it doesn't tend to last there very long. Right now, we're towards what we deem when Bitcoin is undervalued, when it is attractive. This is the time that you want to be making sure that you're taking a position. A lot of people like to follow it to the upside, to chase after price and momentum. Right now, I'm trying to get everyone straight so that they understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. So over here, this is, by the way, what does it really matter when? We're talking about the life cycle of new technology. This was in December, right? December 11th was when I really started presenting this here to CTM. And we have some price estimates, right? 500,000 conservative estimate by 2025. $1 million end of year 2026. But does it really matter when? Does it really matter when? I'm positioned for it, right? With 90% of my net worth, including owned real estate since 2020. In 2019, it was different. It was 50%. Early 2020, it was 50% of my net worth was into Bitcoin and the other was into owned real estate. That Bitcoin position has appreciated since, and it's flip-flopped it to 90% net worth. Does it matter when? Do people not realize it is early? When I say that it is early, we're looking at over here. Let me find her over here. We are early adopters, and we are still working towards breaking the chasm, jumping the chasm. That's what this is over here when I have this marked as liftoff. I don't know that liftoff is occurring right over here right now. It's in this area over here. How do we get what the facing reality phase is? How do we know what the hype phase is? We've looked back at all different technologies, businesses that have followed this path of adoption. This is nothing new. This is nothing new. Now, granted, here at CTM, it was looking at, a fractal of Amazon in 2010, a fractal of the Dow, a fractal of the S&P 500 that helped us to identify the facing reality pattern and then see that it was taking place on Bitcoin, to see that it took place on other assets, other technologies, and kind of head and be able to refocus, to realign what our posture, what our view on Bitcoin should be. And it's helped a lot. And we continue to refine that as we're doing right here, right now. This is the S-curve of business growth. This is nothing new, right? They call this the strategic inflection point. There are points when a company must make a fundamental shift to maintain and or capitalize on forward momentum. Again, for Bitcoin, this happens to be the growth and the success of the Lightning Network. 4 years ago, during the fork wars, 2017, when people were trying to create a faster and better Bitcoin, the Lightning Network was just an idea. It was just a white paper being developed. Here we are, 4 or 5 years later, and it is absolutely massive momentum working towards Bitcoin. And as you saw at the right, did they talk about at the conference? I didn't see it. Right, the what's it called? The Terra, making every single other altcoin obsolete as it could be transferred over the Lightning Network using Bitcoin Core as the settlement layer. We are going places. Anyone, I'm excited this morning as we get going. I wonder what event could be seen as the hype phase ending, and so forth. So, Crispy, the question is, like, how do you identify when a hype phase is actually ending or not? And, look, while you're in the hype phase, it's very hard to identify and it's very hard to stay with it. There's not much different over here in the facing reality. How many people have abandoned, have sold their Bitcoin, not realizing what's ahead, but focusing on what just happened? The hype phase, while you're going through that type of growth, it's very difficult to know what is actually in the hype phase, when the hype phase is ending, Crispy. And then, not every technology, not every asset gets to make it towards the facing reality phase, right? Some of them die out of that hype phase. You probably see lots of altcoins die just in the hype phase alone, right? So very risky, very risky. Now, the Winklevoss brothers, why Bitcoin was in the hype phase, was able to identify Bitcoin as something that had the potential to go a lot further. I mean, they bet big on Bitcoin very early because they were able to see the bullish case for Bitcoin and understand it, why it was still in that hype phase. And I think it's just as important not only to distinguish when something's in the hype phase, but whether or not it has the potential, the capacity to go further out of the hype phase into the facing reality phase, and then to that ultimate market opportunity phase. All right. And then you can see they call that scale. They're calling that scale. And Bitcoin right now at $200 million users is not even close. Is not even close to scaling. But the next few years, the next 4 years ahead of us are going to be the next 2 years. We're going to see immense, intense growth. Regulation could put an end of the phase. That's true. David, this has to do, right, not so much with Bitcoin, right? Hold on. We're talking about the hype phase first. You could have some new technology in the hype phase, and regulation could very quickly come in and put an end to that. Bitcoin could have been stopped very easily back in the hype phase. It would have been very easy at that point to do. It's a lot harder now to stop Bitcoin, and you could see that even the U.S. government is working towards, with the president's current executive order, working towards outlining those regulations and letting the rest of the world know that they are going to be leaders in the digital age because they want all those transactions happening within its borders. And when I say borders, I'm talking about those digital borders, those servers. And yeah, let's keep going because I don't know where we got off. Oh, there was something else there, right? Institutions want into Bitcoin but can't until it's regulated. It's so true. It's so true. And now we just talked about it's coming. It's coming with that executive order. And once it does, there's going to be a tsunami. But here's the thing. It's not just the adoption. We talk about adoption and how the S-curves work and what we're looking at. 200 million users, right? 1 billion users. 4 years from now, 3 years from now, 2 years from now, 1 billion users. It's insane growth. It's exponential growth. It's not a log regression channel. Now, what we were talking about. We were talking about institutions at the conference. The institutions want into Bitcoin, Mr. Wonderful, right? But they can't until it's regulated. That's coming. And then you're talking about this one area, this you have the Quan guy on the bid right now. You have Michael Saylor constantly on the bid, right? Now you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. You're talking billions of dollars in the case of MicroStrategy, the Quan guy getting there, but when institutions enter, when sovereign wealth funds enter, you're talking massive, massive, massive inflow of Bitcoin. People don't understand with that tight supply, and the supply keeps getting tighter right now. Big shout out to everyone that's holding Bitcoin right now for over 1 year. We're about to hit 64% of the supply has been held on Bitcoin for a year. And during that year, as people have been able to hold through volatility, actually not too much volatility, right? A year ago, Bitcoin was at what? The same price it is now. A lot of people suffering during this consolidation. Our consolidations, they normally lead what? To a big move. Is that big move coming to the upside or the downside, right? Well, zoom out a second. For sure, it's coming to the out of the upside. I know everyone's worried about the macro, that everyone's worried about the Federal Reserve. Being that we were early on understanding what the Fed's doing, we'll talk about what happens to Bitcoin if there's any type of, let's call it, crisis event that comes in the near future. But right now, I want you to zoom out. I want you to zoom out and understand and firm up those diamond hands of yours and understand why you are positioned. Because right now, let me tell you to you straight, there are a lot of people out there trying to talk people out of their Bitcoin. I've seen it before. This is the same thing that happened all during 2018. During 2018, people kept scaring people out of their Bitcoin when those people were almost already through the drawdown phase, when they were already through the correction. And there was a lot to correct from because Bitcoin had gone parabolic. There was a lot to correct from. Now, this time around, Bitcoin never went parabolic. It makes a lot of sense that in May of 2021, that was actually like the hype phase of I shouldn't say hype phase. What's it called on the Wall Street cheat sheet as you get towards this like the euphoric state. This was pretty euphoric. A lot of people buying Dogecoin at the top as Elon Musk got on Saturday Night Live, right? Pumping Dogecoin. A close friend of mine who I tried to get into Bitcoin for many, many years, the day before Elon went on Saturday Night Live, told me that he finally made the move and purchased crypto. He bought Dogecoin. I couldn't believe it. Just like face palm. I couldn't believe that he did not buy Bitcoin after all the time and energy trying to help him understand the bullish case for Bitcoin. Nevertheless, as Bitcoin during this past year has gone sideways, the volatility was too much for a lot of people. It has worn them out mentally, emotionally, and Bitcoin hasn't done. If you can't handle that type of volatility, you can't handle the volatility of Bitcoin to the upside about what's to come. So what I'm trying to do right now is to realign your focus, your understanding, making the bullish case for Bitcoin so that you are not so much worried about what's over here. Is it possible Bitcoin dumps 40% from where it is? Sure is, right? In the greater scheme of things, does it matter? Well, I'm trying to create wealth. So if I could time the market like that, then I could catch up to you. Well, no, that's not how I did it. I did it by positioning in, at this point, 50% of my net worth, right? Over here, it became 90% of my net worth. And then holding on to that. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. All right. What else are we looking at here? If you don't mind, what does liftoff language reference? We talked about liftoff is the point between the facing reality stage, known also as the strategic inflection point for businesses, where Bitcoin needs to prove itself to enter the ultimate market opportunity, otherwise known as the early majority begins. That begins is spelt wrong. There's always a typo in my tweets. It's part of what happens over here. Embrace it. During the 2008 crisis, y'all remember the 2008 crisis? I do. It was epic. It was extraordinary. I made the second most money that I ever made. The most was in 2020. During that crisis, I welcome crises. When they come, I'm open arms. However, I could say in the past 15 years, well, there's only been 2 crises. So everyone's always looking for the markets are not crashing. It's the I was gonna say meme. It's the meme of CTM. The markets are not crashing. They might, right? And that's why. It's because when they do crash, it's far and few between. And when they do crash, there's an enormous amount of money to be made if you know what's going on. Now, 2008 crisis, gold came off 30%, right? And then that's when they started that massive balance sheet expansion. Next crisis happening 12 years later, gold this time comes off 15%. And then went boom. Massive balance sheet expansion, dollars being devalued, gold, boom, leg up. The next crisis, gold's not going to come off. People learned during 2008 to 2020 that they want to hold gold. Usually it is whatever is liquid, whatever you could sell. Bitcoin is one of the most liquid assets out there for the size. It's a small market, $1 trillion market, but very liquid 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? People in the past have sold liquid assets to covered leverage positions. Next time, they're not selling their gold. They don't want their next time. They're not selling their Bitcoin either. People are not going to let go of their Bitcoin because they know what happens after the crisis. Boom. Now we got 64% of the fold holding strong. As Bitcoin begins to appreciate, those hodlers are going to be even stronger. All right. We've been talking about it for a long time. By the way, zero hedge is amazing. Why do I say it's amazing? Do you remember when I told you that quantitative tightening, soon the conversation is going to become quantitative tightening? Do you remember I said probably this time the runoff is going to be much larger than the last time, somewhere around 60, 90 billion per month, right? Now we have the Fed in the meeting minutes last week saying the same thing. Look, over a long period of time, if you're able to read between headlines, if you're able to see what is disinformation, if you have the ability to think for yourself and critically think, because a lot of stuff in a lot of places, you just got to push aside. You got to know what to pay attention to and what not. Zero hedge has a long history of being on the right side of many things, and it's what has helped us navigate these markets, understanding quickly that back in October, Fed was moving towards tapering. Fed was moving towards raising rates. They told us you can't taper a Ponzi. They told us the taper is vapor. Here we are. The taper has been completed. They're raising rates. What comes next? Quantitative tightening. Why? Over here this morning, Luke, aka Lukastos, pointing out, high yield junk, very much in trouble. And that is the canary in the coal mine. When the credit markets implode, the Fed can't go anymore, right? Here's the thing though, quantitative tightening, it should put a cap in yields. This morning, we're looking at yields 10-year trading at 2.72%. They told, right? Raise your hand if you knew what was coming. And you know what? It's pressuring all markets. Right now, today, we see the equity. We're going to look at that in a moment. We see the equity markets coming off. Bitcoin down 3%, right? What's going on over here? Tomorrow, we have the CPI readings, and the market's worried right now. Yields are already too high, putting so much pressure. But what's coming is quantitative tightening. And when that happens, that should put a cap in yields. Do I want yield control? Do I want yield curve control? Listen, no, in 2019, no one was calling quantitative tightening yield curve control, right? It's a consequence of quantitative tightening, and it flattens yields, right? QT, quantitative tightening, pulls away liquidity as the Fed's balance sheet is run off. So, by the way, this is just a look over here at the expansion of the balance sheet, right? Even if they start, they are starting. When they start quantitative tightening, what is going to happen, right? Are we going all the way back down? No, it's going to come off some. And then when things break, there's going to be another massive expansion of the balance sheet, right? So zoom out. People, again, this is like Bitcoin, zoom out, right? People worried about the coming tightening. Well, the tightening should probably put should put a cap in yield. That should help the rest of the markets. And the markets most likely during quantitative tightening are probably going to trade pretty much sideways as they did during 2019. Bitcoin was up on the year. The last time the Fed went towards quantitative tightening, Bitcoin traded up on the year. It's not a bad thing. People are very worried over here, probably at the wrong time. Here you can see when quantitative tightening start. This is in yellow, the 10-year. Here above is the S&P 500. And you can see during 2019, equity markets went sideways. Over here at this point, this is when like the markets were kind of pushing the Fed, and Jerome Powell over here had a verbal pivot, right? And is that's what's happening next? At some point, I trying to time that though. Do you really want to? I don't. Here you're looking at 10-year yields, and you can see, that they went sideways after. By the way, QT starts, right? Month over month, they start taking away. It takes time. People always are looking for the result to happen. They want to go from A to C with skipping the time between of B, right? So here the Fed starts tightening over here, and then boom, then you see yields come off. I expect this is where we are in the cycle right now. That's my feelings. Oh, by the way, let's look at Bitcoin. If I add Bitcoin to that, you could see what the Bitcoin was doing during 2019. And I'll just put it on a new pane over here. And you can see that Bitcoin, as the Fed started tightening, when they started, I said 2018. So let me show you 2019, excuse me. I said 2019. Well, that's kind of cheating. Why? Because Bitcoin's at its low. But as the Fed was tightening, and here you can see the markets are really scared, as the markets were tightening, and then when Jerome comes in and pivots, in 2019, we went up from 3,500, almost a 3x. But let's start when quantitative tightening started. And when quantitative tightening started, Bitcoin was trading at $73,000, right? Más o menos. Can I get a price? Yeah, $7,000. And then when it ended, over here is when quantitative tightening ended. The repo markets were broken, and the Fed had to started expanding their balance. Bitcoin was at $10,000. So, is it possible that Bitcoin right now, as they begin QT, well, I don't know where exactly the price of Bitcoin will be in May when they start QT, because I don't have a crystal ball. There's really no way for me to know. But what I'm looking at is the period of when quantitative tightening happens and what happens to markets. You all know that we were able to understand ahead of the volatility, the correction into the first rate hike cycle. It was looking at past behavior and then giving us that awareness ahead of time. Everyone else seems to be like at the peak of the correction, like, oh, well, it was because of this. Well, here we are, a step ahead. And that's what we're looking to do. Luke, Scarrett, Lynn Alden, Preston Fish, Dylan LeClaire, all signaling a crisis intimate. We will see, right? And again, and then you have Jordan, right? But you remember when I talked about in October 15th here on the channel, I said the Fed just very clearly said that they're gonna begin tapering and then raise rates, and like a lot of people like that's not possible, and it was Lynn Alden the day after, and then Luke Roman a couple of days after, who both said, yeah, for sure, they could do that, right? It's going to lead to things breaking, and yes, we knew that from the beginning. It will lead to things breaking, but trying to time when they break, that's a different story. That's the difficult part. That's the part most people get wrong. And by the way, P.S., this time when things break, gold and Bitcoin, they're not coming off. They're not coming off like they did in 2020. You saw Bitcoin come off 60%. By the way, that had a lot to do with BitMEX's, the largest exchange at the time, the largest amount of volume being done on BitMEX. Their exchange went into a liquidation loop, right? Since then, BitMEX is no longer the largest exchange. The market has grown immensely since then. Gold came off 15%, 30% in 2008. What do you think gold comes off in the next crisis? 7%? Do you think you want to sell your gold because it might come off 7%? Do you want to sell your Bitcoin because it might come off another 30%? Do you want to sell your Bitcoin? Do you have the timing to be able to catch it back to the upside as the system begins to unfold and break? I have it for tomorrow's session, right? But I've been talking about over here, Bretton Woods 3 already happened, right? There was no sit down only shots fired. We are looking at a new monetary system unfolding before our eyes in real time, and a lot of people are focused in what happened in the past. We're going to save that for tomorrow's session, though. We're also going to save this over here for tomorrow's session, a look at what's going on in a different light, and that's going to be a fun one. Right now, we're going to move into CTM 2.0 and take a look at what's going on over there.